So before we start our presentation of today with Allison, I'm going to share some information about Partner Resource Network, guys. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right. So my name is Veronica Alvarez, and I work with Partner Resource Network. And we are going to share some information about what we do in Partners. So who we are. Partner Resource Network is a parent training and information centers for Texas. We are funded by the Department of Education, Office of Special Education, to provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities and self-advocates. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities with special healthcare needs. So who we serve? We serve parents of children and youth with disabilities from the ages from 0 to 26, as well as youth self-advocates ages from 14 to 26. Partner Resource Network was first founded in 1986, and now we have 4 projects serving parents. The PAT project, the Team project, the PEN projects, and the new one is called PACT project. We are all part of the family of Partner Resource Network, where we are divided on these projects because Texas is very big. So I'm part of the Team project, as you can see in the red area. Team project is, we have 3 regions in Team project. I'm in region 13 here in Austin and surrounding areas. We have region 20, that is San Antonio, and region 1, that is the Rio Grande Valley area. So our services are free, and we offer parent workshops, youth workshops, webinar like this one, information and referrals, one-on-one technical assistance. We do support in the IEP meetings, on the R meetings. We do once a year a symposium. We offer parent leadership training and youth leadership trainings. So for today, important items for today. So if you have any questions at any time, please type it in the chat box or in the Q&A area, and we are going to be answering your questions during this presentation. So this webinar is being recorded, and the presentation, you can see it in our Facebook pages later on, or in a YouTube channel that Allison has, and she's going to talk about that in a moment. And at the end of this session, you are going to receive email with a link to a survey. Please take just a few minutes to fill that survey. We really appreciate that you can fill that form and have your feedback. And with that, we can report to our grant and continue giving you guys free services. We do not provide CEUs, but we can do a certificate of attendance. If you need one, please type in the chat box, and I'm happy to do one for you and send you a certificate of attendance. All right, so that's the thing that I have for you guys. I'm going to start sharing. And now we are going to present to Allison Schaberg. She is a passionate advocate for the special needs community. She's a parent also of children with special needs and understands our work perfectly. And she's also a licensed financial planner. She has like over 25 years of experience working with families. So she also is the owner of the Consolidated Planning Group, and she's been great helping us and our families, sharing all those great information. Today she's going to be talking about Able Account, but she has a lot of topics talking about transition and youth and post-educational, you name it. Allison, welcome, and thank you for being here with us today.
Veronica, as always, thank you for having us back again. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's always so great to see all of the educational stuff that you're putting out there. You know, we talk about a lot about how difficult planning is when you're when you are transitioning and when you're, you know, just navigating life with a special needs child alone. So like you, we love putting out information that helps people along the journey and makes the journey a little bit easier. So as she mentioned, we do have a YouTube channel, and we put our webinars out there on the YouTube channel. So if you've missed one, you can kind of go back and look. And these topics are largely surrounding special needs, interest, and transition planning. Everything you could possibly think up in your head that you might need to know about is probably out there when it comes to things such as guardianship, you know, special needs trusts. We talk about SSI and Medicaid a lot. They're all of these topics, they're deep and wide, and some are more near and dear to the heart than others. But today, as she said, we are going to talk about ABLE accounts. We're going to talk about a few other things, but we're going to just get started right away. And also, as she said, if you have questions today, just put those in the chat box. We can't see you or hear you today, but we do know you're there, and we're glad you're here. And we aim to answer as many questions as we can as we go along. Okay. So first things first, the ABLE account. The ABLE account is also known as a 529A, and the ABLE Act was enacted in 2014. So these things ABLE accounts have not been around forever. You're not real late to the party. They just kind of started coming about. So we've heard of 529Cs. 529C is for college, 529A for ABLE, and it's about achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. So a 529A and 529C operate a lot differently. Okay, so in the example of the 529A, the beneficiary is the account owner. Okay, so the beneficiary is the account owner, whereas the parent is basically the account owner in the 529C. Whereas the student that might be going to college or your child is the beneficiary. So income earned in this account is not taxable, and contributions are not deductible. The key thing about the ABLE account, and an ABLE account are things people throw around. They talk about these things all the time, but why do you even need an ABLE account? And so basically, if you have a child with disabilities, you need an ABLE account because it preserves eligibility. It allows you to have some money in an account for the benefit of your loved one that is not going to jeopardize SSI, Medicaid, or other public benefits. And how on earth have you ever gotten along without having an ABLE account thus far? Is completely plausible because many families don't qualify for SSI and Medicaid prior to the child turning 18. Some do, some don't, but it is a means-based test. So a lot of times from an asset perspective, families don't qualify. So there's this kind of light bulb moment that when your child is about to turn 18, that we might need to have an ABLE account for this purpose, because when it comes to SSI and Medicaid, although your child may have never qualified before, when they turn 18, even if they still live with you, they're still under your roof, you still claim them on your taxes, the qualifications from a asset perspective are based off of their assets, not yours anymore. So when they turn 18, everything changes, even if you've been denied before. So an ABLE account is going to allow you to have money. This is considered a right bucket, as I refer to it. We want to have money in the right buckets as it refers to our disabled children that are 18 and older, so that way we can preserve their eligibility for these programs. There are special contribution and distribution limits. And so one of the things that I think that is important to know is that there are conversion options, because one of the questions that we get on a pretty regular basis, a lot of families opened 529Cs for all of their kids when their kids were very young. And maybe right now you don't know. Maybe your child will go to college, maybe they won't go to college, but you don't know. So you can convert a 529C to a 529A. So if you have a 529C for your disabled child and you're interested in converting it to a 529A, you can do that, but there are some contribution limits annually that you have to be aware of. So if you have a 529C with large account balances, there is going to be a time frame, kind of a timeline that you're going to have to move it over because you can't move it all at once. Okay, and we'll talk more about that. Okay. All right. So as far as qualifications and who can have an ABLE account, basically this is for disabled individuals whose disability started prior to age 26. Okay. So there is sometimes confusion around this because when we're going deep and wide with SSI and Medicaid, or we're talking about our kids being considered a disabled adult child under a parent's record through the Social Security Administration, that magic age, the magic age of the disability had to begin is prior to age 22. So I just wanted to talk about that because you've probably heard before age 22 and you've had that over and over and over again, and that is correct. But for an ABLE account, the disability had to start prior to age 26. If the individual is older than 26 and you don't have an ABLE account, you can still get one if their disability, you have proof that their disability started prior to age 26. Okay, so as far as contributions, the first thing I want to also say is you can have one ABLE account. So an individual with a disability can have one ABLE account, but anyone can contribute to it. They can contribute to it as parents, you can, aunts, uncles, grandparents, perfect stranger can contribute to their ABLE account, but it is limited to the $15,000 annually. So contributions annually cannot be more than $15,000. And so that, whenever I was talking about the conversion amount, that conversion amount, if you're going to convert from a 529C to a 529A, is also $15,000 a year. So this is where I was talking about if you have $100,000 sitting in a 529C, you can only convert $15,000 a year to an ABLE account. Funds held in the ABLE account in excess of $100,000 disqualify the beneficiary for SSI benefits. Okay, this is important. It's very important to know. So when you start like researching or reading about ABLE accounts, I'm not sure even for the 2021, it might even be you could have up to $400,000. It's close to $400,000 that you could actually have in an ABLE account when you start reading about them. But for SSI and Medicaid purposes, if you have $1, if you have a penny over 100,000, you can disqualify for SSI and Medicaid. So we are, big proponents of making sure our children are eligible for benefits and they don't lose their eligibility. So the number you need to keep in mind is $100,000. Okay. If an ABLE account owner, and remember your loved one with a disability is the account owner who work, they may contribute up to an additional $12,490 of their gross income into an ABLE account if they don't have an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So the cool thing about the ABLE account, the why behind this, is that the distributions for qualified disability expenses are not taxable, and earnings on distributions for non-qualified expenses are subject to ordinary income tax and a 10% penalty. But so the big difference of what is a qualified expense under an ABLE account is, in a nutshell, is if the expense can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with disabilities, then it's an eligible expense from an ABLE account. So whereas a 529C, it's basically for higher learning, it's for college, community college. There's a small percentage that you can pay out of a 529C for a private school, but basically all of those things. So a 529A can pay for college. That's an eligible expense. It can also pay for tutoring, which a lot of our family members might need help. They may be struggling learners or things like that. So it can also pay for tutoring. But quite honestly, it can pay for an iPhone, a laptop. It can pay for rent and housing. It can pay for food and shelter. It could pay for a vacation. I mean, basically, if it's construed as achieving a better life, it can be paid for. So a couple of things to know. There is tax-free growth in the investments that can be changed by the participant twice a year. And it can also be rolled over to other family members who are eligible beneficiaries. So let's talk about that, because, you know, sometimes that can be a little bit sticky. So who is an eligible family member? Well, an eligible family member would be a family member who is disabled, whose disability started prior to age 26. So while we work with many families that have more than one disabled individual in their household, some families may only have one disabled individual. So in that example, if they rolled it over to someone else, I mean, they wouldn't be an eligible beneficiary. Another key thing that is important to know is that states may be able to claim reimbursement for expenses paid by Medicaid at death. So if your loved one passes away and there is money remaining in the ABLE account, there is a Medicaid payback on an ABLE account, so you do need to be aware of that. So one thing that comes up a lot is, does it matter what ABLE account I go with, or is there a particular state that is better than another? And, you know, sometimes that's a loaded question. I have clear opinions on some states. Some states are not as good as other states. Some states were late to the party when it came to ABLE accounts. Some states were very early adopters, and theirs are a little bit better. But we tend to lean towards more of the ABLE accounts that are associated with some of the funds out there, so that way it's not just a fixed account. We also tend to lean towards ABLE accounts that have some of the flexibility. Some ABLE accounts, and you know, when you start researching this is something our firm, you know, we can help with. We can set ABLE accounts up for folks. But when you start reading about it, some of these manuals and these books about, you know, how you get money out and these types of things, it's kind of a laborious process to read it, but then how you have to go about getting the money out and how difficult it is another problem. So we're in favor of ABLE accounts that have easier accessibility to be able to get the money if you need it, and making those distributions. Okay, so again, you know, I hit the highlights on the
a little
yes.
Question. I don't know if
sure.
Time. It says, can an ABLE account be set up as a special needs trust?
So a special needs trust and an ABLE account are definitely different, and the answer is no. So typically people need both, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So a lot of times there's confusion on why do I need an ABLE account and why do I need a special needs trust, and what are the differences, right? So basically setting up an ABLE account, you can't really set up a beneficiary. Like, so for instance, if you have life insurance, you can't leave your life insurance to an ABLE account, okay? But you can leave it to a special needs trust. So basically an ABLE account and a special needs trust are the two places that you can have money once your child is over 18, or if they're already getting, you know, Medicaid and SSI. They're the two places that you can have money more than the qualification limits that are not going to cause them to lose their eligibility. So with the ABLE account, we just learned that you can have up to $100,000. A special needs trust, you can have an unlimited amount of money. And because some of our family members may need care for the rest of their life, their cost and the need for care is going to be great, much greater than what a $100,000 ABLE account can handle. But the reason you still need an ABLE account outside of a special needs trust is an ABLE account, if you're getting SSI and Medicaid, an ABLE account can pay housing costs such as rent and mortgage. And so if you're getting benefits, your special needs trust is not to pay for rent and mortgage. They can buy a house outright. A special needs trust can buy a house outright, but not rent or mortgage. So the ABLE account is set up in the individual's name. It's still right. It doesn't cause them to lose any SSI and Medicaid, but that is the way that it has to be set up. Do we have an additional question?
Sure, we have a question in the chat. We will have this workshop in Spanish. Right now, you don't have anything in Spanish right now, right, Allison?
We don't, but I think, and I'm not positive about this, but we will check on that. I think that there might be a switch in YouTube, like that you can, I'm not sure if you can convert it in YouTube or not. But I wish we did. We do not have that at this time.
We're going to find something, guys, with Allison and I, and find maybe a translator that can help us at the same time. But we have to discuss that, Allison. Right now, we don't have one, right? That's the answer. I have another question. If your disabled adult child is not getting SSI and Medicaid, there is no payback, and the total able account balance can be passed on to beneficiaries, correct?
So technically, so there wouldn't be a Medicaid payback, but depending on the setup of the account, there's not necessarily a beneficiary set up. So it would be depending on the estate planning that you've done for the individual. So if the individual has a will or a trust, and it, basically it's the asset of the individual. So however the estate would be liquidated would be how that account balance. You're not going to lose the balance if that's what you're asking. And if you're not getting any of the benefits, and it really doesn't matter. I guess one could argue that if you're not getting any of those benefits, then do you really even have to have an ABLE account? There might be other avenues or other options that might be better to have the money in it. So if you're not worried about losing SSI or Medicaid or other status, but most of the families are, because and so I want to be clear on that. So I'm clear that SSI at $794 a month is not making anybody rich, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm also clear that a lot of families don't prefer Medicaid, and if they have private health insurance, they would rather use their private health insurance over Medicaid. A lot of times, Medicaid being a secondary provider, they come in and they pay deductibles and other things like that. But I guess, are you ever going to need services? Is your loved one on the state interest list in the state of Texas for waivers? We have webinars about these waivers and things like that, because they have to maintain Medicaid eligibility for waivers. And so if you're sure that you're never going to be on SSI or Medicaid, and you're not interested in any of the waivers in the state of Texas that might waive off some of the cost of care for your loved ones, then again, maybe the answer is you might not need an ABLE account. Okay, so there's definitely other places that you can put the money. Okay, so so most of the expenses that you cannot pay for out of a special needs trust, you can pay for the ABLE account. That was the main thing. Veronica, do we have another question?
For the ABLE account, do you do that at the bank? And my son, I don't understand the question. For the ABLE account, she has a son that is 5 years old. Can he have an ABLE account?
Absolutely. At any age, and even after age 26, as long as the disability started prior to age 26. And where do you get ABLE accounts? Again, they're throughout all the different states. We offer ABLE accounts through some of the fund companies, more specifically mutual fund companies out there. We find them more accessible, easier to work with, and can gain some money on your money without, putting too much risk out there. So we have very specific recommendations. I would probably advise against going to a bank. They might be able to help you, but they are not going to know anything about the ABLE account. So be careful with that. Again, you can certainly reach out and we can kind of talk through what some of the options are and kind of look at what you're looking to do. Some people want to just fund it at $15,000 a year. Some people want to do a monthly bank draft where they're putting, they're putting money in there monthly. Sometimes people want to open it with a particular amount, and then once or twice a year, they might want to dump money in. Of course, they can't dump in more than $15,000 a year, but there's some different options. I mean, I've heard of grandparents that are saying, hey, we'd like to, do this, once a year. We're kind of, we're gifting some money. So instead of gifting it to your special needs loved one, they gift it to the ABLE account. There's all kinds of options like that.
Can you fund the ABLE account from a first-party trust?
Yes, you can. So a couple of things. So right here, what we have on here, that, and that's a good question. That's kind of a good segue. We haven't really spoke about special needs trust during this webinar. Special needs trust, there's a first party special needs trust, and there is a third party special needs trust. And again, we have whole webinars on this particular topic with attorneys that are going to go deeper and wider on that topic. But so as I mentioned earlier, a first party special needs trust, a third party special needs trust, there is no limit on how much money that can be in that special needs trust, and the special needs trust is not going to be counted against them for social benefits. Okay, but a first party special needs trust, like an ABLE account, there is a Medicaid payback on that. So a first party special needs trust is the individual's money. Okay. Where does the individual's money come from? It could come from their own working. It could come from a lawsuit settlement, some kind of, wrongful healthcare thing or something like that. It could come from a scholarship refund or that's kind of their own money. Okay. Another place where money comes into a first party special needs trust is when people accidentally name your loved one outright as a beneficiary. So, and in this example, if your son is John Smith and grandma and grandpa pass away and grandma and grandpa leaves John Smith $250,000, well, they left it to him wrong, okay, because it went to his name outright, and it's going to cause him to disqualify from SSI and Medicaid. So in that example, you would have to hire an attorney. You can't just disinherit it or not take it. John doesn't take the money. That comes up every time. That it doesn't work that way. But what you would do is you would hire an attorney. They would request that it be signed off on by a judge for it to go into a first party trust so it won't affect his benefits. So that's a first party trust, and there is a Medicaid payback on it. What we want to avoid is the Medicaid payback. So if we set up our trust properly and we set up assets to move to the trust properly, as opposed to naming John Smith outright, we name the third party special needs trust for the benefit of John Smith, for example, as the beneficiary. Then when something happens to you, that asset goes to the special needs trust, not to John directly. It doesn't need to be redirected to a first party trust. There is no Medicaid payback on a third party special needs trust. So a lot of times people don't need a first party special needs trust if you're not getting a lawsuit settlement, if there's no other, money coming in, or somebody hasn't left them money accidentally to their name outright. Sometimes you don't even need a first party special needs trust. The third party trust is how you want to set things up to where it goes to the trust and doesn't affect qualifications. Do we have some additional questions?
Is there an annual fee? The account is invested into mutual fund, so it has a risk, right? They're asking about the ABLE account. Is there an annual fee?
There's annual fees for all ABLE accounts, and it just depends on the different accounts that you're looking for. So, kind of getting in the weeds and kind of sitting down with a person and understanding what they're looking for and identifying what those fees are. But no, there's no ABLE account out there that is free, but they're not overly expensive either. So it's not something that you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They're all about the same, give or take a little bit.
Can a special needs trust pay into the ABLE account so it can be used for rent or mortgage later on?
Yes. And so that's the key. And the key with this slide, and if we go back a slide, we were talking about what can an ABLE account pay for. And if we're looking at the slide, it looks like, well, it can't pay for very much. But remember, if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, you can pay for it out of an ABLE account. You're going to want to keep track of your expenses and those types of things. But when we flip over to this slide and we see all of this, this list, it looks like a special needs trust can pay for more things than an ABLE account, and that's not necessarily true. This is just an example of what, some things that they can pay for. But the biggest thing that I want to draw your attention to here is, down on the right-hand side, it's buying a house or a real property. So again, a special needs trust can buy a house or real property, but they don't pay housing and rent. If you're getting any kind of social benefits, a special needs trust doesn't pay for housing and rent. And basically, the reason behind that is, SSI is basically designed for food and shelter. So they're wanting you, if you're getting SSI, they're wanting you to pay for food and shelter out of that. So I've seen some things along the way where, like, somebody may have a loved one in a residential facility or some type of group home or things like that. The special needs trust may or may not be able to pay for those services out of the trust. And this area is really gray, and it totally depends on the facility and how they bill. If they bill it as room and board, then it can't. If they, bill it as medical, if there's a medical facility there, then it can. So, and every facility is different in how they do that. So if you're ever considering, some type of residential or some type of care home, you're definitely going to want to know if, how they bill, how it works, and, do they have any people paying for the care out of the special needs trust? Because that does matter. And again, if they're billing it as, room and board or, food and shelter, then it wouldn't be able to be paid for.
Great answer.
Any other questions right now?
See, the other one is about the YouTube channel, but you are going to share that in the end of the presentation, right?
Yes, for sure. Okay. So we kind of hit on this: food and shelter, rent, mortgage payments. So if you have, a lump sum and you want to buy a house with a lump sum from a special needs trust, you can, but no cash, no food. Basically, your regular monthly bill service is not what it's designed to do on the special needs trust. Okay, so we're going to jump over here because we're talking about ABLE accounts. We were talking about ABLE accounts that could pay for tutoring. They could pay for school. Your 529C can pay for college. One thing I didn't hit on before we kind of dive down this, I want to talk about that 529C for a second. Some people get really worried that they have a 529C and the 529C is going to be used against the student or against your loved one, is counted as an asset. And it is true that a 529C could be counted as an asset, except for as a parent or a grandparent, you're the owner. So when your child turns 18, even if you have a 529C for them, you're the owner. So it's not going to be counted as an asset for theirs unless you distribute money from the 529 directly to them. Okay, so this is an asset that is yours. It is not theirs. It's different in an ABLE account. That asset is theirs, but that's why it's in an ABLE account and won't be counted against them. Just wanted to make sure that everybody's clear on that, because the setup of between the 529C and A is a little bit different and it's confusing to some. So here are just a couple of educational options post high school. Again, we're going to have that YouTube channel here at the end for you, and there'll be a link in the email that goes out to everyone as well. But we do have very regular presentations on educational options post high school for neurodiverse individuals. I will also be speaking this weekend on the online Greater Houston Disability Chamber. We're going to provide 2 talks going deep and wide on college options, funding options, all kinds of stuff for the neurodiverse. So that's coming up this weekend on Saturday. So you can look out for that. And again, that's the Greater Houston Disability Chamber. The event is online, but we have all of these out there on our YouTube channel, and you can learn more about some of these programs. So what I want to tell you is start early. So if we're thinking, if we are thinking about college programs, certificate programs, transition programs, any of these types of things, start early, research, go deep and wide. Some of these programs are really great. They might be a fit for your child. You may have thought maybe it's not going to work. There is a program out there for you, but some of them don't take very many students. They don't have very many slots. So you want to start earlier versus later. If you're considering a transition program outside of your public school, you might want to research some of those transition programs in your community throughout the state. See if they have a waiting list. Because what we're really trying to do is, from transitioning is we're trying to avoid that the student is coming home and sitting at home because the waiting list was too long, or they couldn't get into the transition, or they had no more slots with some of the programs that you might be interested in. Another thing, if you're taking notes here, thinkcollege.org. I think there's like over 300 schools on thinkcollege.org that, that all across the country that, may be worth checking into, that they are known for, working with kids with disabilities. So these are some of the ones that are on in the state. I think there's that Lynn University on here. That's actually in Florida. That is not in the state, but most of these are in the state of Texas. So transition and day programs post high school. So again, these are all across they're all across the area. Just research early, get yourself on the waiting list. A lot of them are doing virtual tours. Some of them wouldn't even allow you to put yourself on the waiting list unless you came for a face-to-face tour. But check some of these out. Some of them take waivers, some of them don't. But really, really great programs, all, under their own right. So just check some of these out, and don't be afraid if they're not in your particular area, because some of them may even have programs of transport and other things like that. So definitely check all of these out. Consider all of the options. So it's not just, we don't know. Some of our kids, they might not be there yet. Maybe at 18, maybe at 22, maybe they're delayed. Maybe from a maturity perspective, they're not ready for community college. They're not ready for college. Maybe they're never going to be ready for college, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's their certificate. Maybe it's a skill that they're going to learn. Maybe they're going to work with vocational rehab and learn some skills so they can go to work. Any of these things are okay, but I think my big point is just start early and look into some of these things and get yourself on the list. Then you at least reserve the right to say no if you come up on the list, but you certainly have the opportunity to say yes as well. Okay, we jumped up ahead. Some of these are just some residential and partial residential options post high school. And I put these out there not because I'm saying, hey, how can you send your child away or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we work with a lot of families that want to look at these things, and they want their child that have some independence or semi-independence, some autonomy from them. All of these places are great. We don't work with them. They don't work with us. Nobody's on anybody's payroll. But what we would say is research some of these, tour some of these places, and what you will find. Some families struggle with, am I, like throwing my loved one away? What you're going to find is the residents at these places are real happy. They're working, they are needed, they have friends, they have community, they're around people their own age, and they're loving their life. And some of these things I want to say, look at sooner versus later. Again, get yourself on the list. If you have a child that might need care for the rest of their life, not just your life, we're not always going to be as young and feel as good as we do right now. People get sick, people die prematurely, and if that is going to affect your caregiving status of your loved one, having a backup plan, a safe backup plan in a good place, and maybe you're fantastic and you have longevity in your family and you're going to live to 100 years old and you're going to be really healthy until the day you die. And that's completely cool. But maybe somewhere along the way, you may want some respite. And we definitely, really recommend respite as well. We spend our whole life as parents working. We're working, whether it's working in the family, as a caregiver or, working outside of the home, and we save and we have hopes and dreams. We have hopes and dreams for our retirement, and your retirement might look a little bit different if you have a loved one that's going to need care for the rest of their life. So that's why we put these out there. Do we have an additional question, Veronica?
We have a new one, I think. So you can have a 529C in your name for your child and a 529A in your child's name, correct? The 529C would not be limited to 100,000 and 529A max. Is that correct?
529A max is 100,000, is $15,000 a year. The 529C would not be limited to a max of 100,000. The 529A is in the individual with the disability's name. They are the account owner. The 529C, the account owner is who provides that money. So if a mom opens a 529C for their child, the mom owns the account, the child is the beneficiary. And the thing is that another thing I just want to bring to people's attention, as an account owner of a 529C, you have the ability to change the beneficiary, okay? So if you have another child that is in college, that is going to continue to go to college and maybe doesn't have enough college money, you can simply change the beneficiary on that 529C to that individual or another child. And they can get the benefit of that 529C by having the college paid for. The main thing of the 529C, along with the 529A, we don't pay cash to the individual with the disability. The 529C, we want those distributions out of a 529C to go directly to the college or the university, not to the individual. So I think that is important. Any additional questions?
Sure. If able account is tax-free on the growth and distribution, it sounds like a good investment for our adult disabled children, even if they are not on SSI and Medicaid. Is this correct?
Well, yes and no. I mean, so, that can be a complicated answer because if they're not on SSI and Medicaid, then they could qualify for IRAs. I mean, other IRAs, there might be other tax favorable options out there that don't have a Medicaid payback. So we would have to understand a person's situation more personally to make that recommendation. But there are other, tax advantage options out there that can accomplish that. Would not have limited, it wouldn't have a Medicaid payback on there. Basically, is the main thing.
Another question, do you have any resources or know where to research any high school programs that offer great life skill programs?
So, we do partner with most of the ISDs across the state. We have partnerships, but we don't have like a tool in particular that rates them or, calls one particular program over another. And I would say just work with your district on that. I mean, there are, there definitely are a lot of transition programs out there. A lot of districts do have transition programs. They're getting transition programs. They're tweaking them. So I would say do definitely check, your district to see if there are programs available. And there is also such a thing, and you can talk to your district about this as well. If you have an ARD, so let's say your school doesn't have a particular transition program, or that particular transition program is not a fit for your child, there is a possibility. You're going to have to work hard to get this accomplished, and you can work with an education advocate to help you make this go away. But there is a possibility that there could be some funding for a transition program outside of the district if you can certainly prove that the one that they have or the lack of one is not a fit for your loved one. But again, we can make recommendations for education advocates. We've got some great ones that we work with, and so we can certainly do that.
Sure. And another question, yes, we are going to send the presentation to everybody in an email. Do these accounts has to be managed by someone like an institution? And are the fees to maintaining this, what is the fees to maintaining disabled accounts? And the other question in the same question is, do they have to be managed by someone like an institution, an able account?
So yeah, I mean, you can't. So there is every able account is run by some type of institution. I don't know, I don't know exactly what you mean, but like each state, like like Ohio is Ohio stable account. Okay, we have the Texas able account through the ARC. They talk about that a lot, the Texas able account, but they're all run by somebody. And again, the fees, they vary so much. We couldn't get into the weeds with the fees, but they're all about the same, but every different able account is different, right? So we couldn't blanketly say.
I meant as an agency, like the trusts do.
So like if you're having like a professional trustee, so as a parent, so maybe you have guardianship of your child, maybe you don't. I have clients where the parent has guardianship and we have an able account and the parent handles the transactions and stuff like that. And I actually have people that have their own able account that have the cognitive capacity to handle it. They are disabled, but they actually have their own able account. So you don't have to have a professional service or trustee running your account. It would be housed somewhere through an institution, but you can be making the transactions and handling that. That's a good question.
I think that's all the questions that we have, Allison.
Okay. So as we're kind of coming around the bend, I think we'll wrap up a little bit early today. These are things that should be on your special needs planning radar. If you've been here with us before, kind of listened to one of our webinars before, these are common things. We always like to put this on the end, the tail end of any of our presentations, of just making sure this might be we are going to actually send the presentation in a PDF so you can have this. But, as you're thinking about kind of going through the path and transition, wherever you are, maybe your child's older than 18, maybe you're, thinking about this, or they're going to be turning 18. These are some of the things that should be on your radar. Some of the things that you should be thinking about, educating yourself on, learning a little bit more. At Consolidated Planning Group, we are a holistic special needs planning firm. I like to kind of explain the differences because a lot of people don't know the difference between a financial planner and a special needs planner. And basically, we have all the same licenses. Although we are nuanced in special needs, we're also, certified as National Social Security advisors. So there's some differences. So when you have a special needs child, your situation is specialized. When we're going to retire and we're going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement, that's a really, really long time. But when you have a special needs child that may need partial care or full care for the rest of their life, not just yours, special planning and consideration goes into play to make sure, A, that there is enough money, there is enough funding to fund that special needs trust, and B, that we have the money in the right buckets so that way we don't accidentally mess something up. So that's where we come into play, and that's the space that we work in. We're also able to develop the future care cost estimates for your special needs child, because that's really a big question of, if I do have a child that needs care for the rest of their life, how much does that cost? What should we be looking at? What about partial care? What about full care? What are the timelines for those things? And we're able to put all of those costs and plans together. Another thing that I think that is super important, and again, this is not a Social Security presentation, but as a parent of a disabled adult child, you have to know that if your child is a disabled adult child under a parent's record, then then they basically are eligible for 50% of your Social Security benefit when you retire or become disabled. 50%. Okay, so that's under the RSDI. And when something happens to you, you pass away, their benefit is increased to 75%. It doesn't affect your benefit. It doesn't make your benefit go down. But these are things that you need to know. And as a National Social Security advisor, we have specialized software that is specifically for families that have special needs loved ones. And that software allows us to calculate exactly when and how to maximize your Social Security benefits for both you and your special needs loved one, and also a spouse that maybe hasn't worked. We do see a lot of scenarios where we had one spouse stay at home as a caregiver, and so that spouse might be drawing off of that record as well. So we're able to do those calculations. So these are all things that are important in your overall plan and as you're thinking through things. And the sooner you get started on that, the better it is. Maybe you're going to retire in 5 years. Maybe you're going to retire in 15 years, but kind of having the lay of the land and having a path forward is going to really ensure that you're going to meet your goals and have those buckets filled appropriately for the special needs trust and those types of things. So on these things on the radar.
We have a final question, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for interrupt. The question is, in Texas, U.S. bank policies for using the ABLE account are very odd. They will only permit a single debit card with my name, the owner's the father. Strangely, their recommendation was for me to allow my wife to carry my card and use the PIN, even though it has my name on it. What if the merchant asks for an ID? I don't understand this policy. We both need to use the card for my SN son expenses, the beneficiary. Any advice? Is the U.S. bank the only option in Texas?
No, that's not the only option. And that is weird. And that was kind of what I was alluding to. So I'm not a fan of throwing any particular ABLE account under the bus, but some of them are real bad. And when I say real bad, it's from an accessibility perspective. It's all of the hoops and loops that you have to jump through to get the money and the turnaround time that it takes them to come off of it. Some of them are not good. And so we can talk to you further about that. So it sounds like you've run into one of them that is just irritating. And that's where I was saying, it can be laborious to look at the details on how do I get the money out? When does that happen? What do I have to do? All this kind of stuff, because some of them really, really, really have you jumping through hoops, and it's nuts. So again, we don't, necessarily throw any one particular under the bus. We're fully aware of the ones that are more difficult to deal with, and we can help you with that. So I'm sorry that you're having that experience, but that is one of the bigger issues that I have seen.
I also get a suggestion on a bank in Texas. Another parent is asking.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Can I also get a suggestion on a bank in Texas?
So a bank in Texas, as far as an ABLE account, I don't have a bank in Texas. As far as an ABLE account, if you're looking for a trustee for your special needs trust, that is an area that we can recommend Cadence Bank or Texas Bank or common trustees that we see of a special needs trust. A person, a family member, if they have the wherewithal, can be their own, the trustee for the special needs child. But depending on how much money is in the trust, kind of sends that over to the next level. If there's, you can say $500,000 or $1 million or more in the trust, then we do recommend a professional trustee as opposed to an individual trustee. I've been a trustee before, and what I would say is, it is a hard job, and it's not for the faint of heart. And so if a person doesn't really have a financial background or really understand all that kind of stuff, it could be a very difficult job for an average Joe to just be a trustee of a trust. So you want to be careful with that. So here is, we talked about the YouTube channel and the Facebook page and our contact information. We have an awesome team at Consolidated Planning Group. I just want to share that. It's not just me. We have an awesome team behind us. And we really pride ourselves on holistic planning. We are really making a difference in this community, and that is our hope. And, as Veronica said at the beginning, I'm a mom. I'm a mom to 4. I have 2 with special needs. I have one that is transitioning as we speak, and I have one that transitioned a few years ago. And it's kind of a hard road, and kind of figuring out all of these things and when to apply and what to do and what not to do. And if you're thinking about guardianship, supported decision making is an option that we have in Texas. There's so many things to be considering, and so we certainly hope you'll reach out. Our initial consultations are always free. We want to have an understanding of where you are, where you've been. We're a big fan of, it's not about looking back, because sometimes people say, I'd be embarrassed for what I put this on the shelf for a while. I've been needing to take care of things. And if that's you, it's okay. It's about looking forward, and you were here today. So that's part of it. It's just, we help align those steps. We help create a plan, and then we help really prioritize, where do we go first? What do we do? So when you're looking at some of these things, how do I get this in order, and how do I take the next steps, and where do I go from here? And we're going to help you prioritize all of those things. That's all I've got.
Another person is asking, can we set an appointment in person with you, or is just virtually? They're asking, Allison, for you.
So yes, we have, honestly, we've really not met personally face to face since the pandemic, just for compromised immune systems and protection of the families that we serve, and protection of my own kids. But, we can meet face to face, but most of the time we meet virtually. We meet by Zoom. And it actually goes well. We serve clients all across the United States, not just in Texas. So if you're from somewhere else, we can work with you as well. But yes, if you're local and you want to meet, then we can certainly make that arrangement as well.
So thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us today. As always, great information that Allison provides to us about the ABLE accounts and the services that Consolidated Planning Group have for our families. So thank you again, and I will send an email with all the information. And if you wanted to see the video again, please look at the YouTube channel that is you can see there the link. And we are going to send that information also in our email, and also in our Facebook pages and Team Project. We usually post our videos with Allison too. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody.
Veronica, we'll also make sure that there is the schedule now button or whatever, so if they are interested in scheduling with us, then they can schedule through the link as well. So thanks so much, everyone, for attending. I hope you have a great afternoon.